Up next in our agenda is our panel of elected officials and leaders. And joining us today, we have Carias from the Skagit County Council member. So Edie's immigrated to Mount Vernon from Honduras in 1994, where she has lived ever since. So Edie's has been involved in the community, has a bachelor's degree in humanities and education from the National Autonomous University of Honduras, and also has taken courses at the Skagit Valley College. Edie is currently working for the Mount Vernon School District as a migrant program educator, and she is also a member of the Washington State Migrant Education Advisory Committee. She helps families as a liaison at Community Action of Skagit County and works as a nursing assistant with Sunrise Services. She currently serves as a board member of Skagit County Child and Family Consortium, FAE, and Skagit Immigrant Rights Council. And she is also a member of the Community Action's Latino Advisory Committee. We also have Juan Morales, who is a former council member of Mount Vernon City Council. Juan was born and raised in Mount Vernon, Washington, with roots in Michoacan. Juan attended and graduated from Mount Vernon High School and earned his bachelor's in applied science degree in applied management with summa cum laude distinction in June 2020. Involvement in the community has also been crucial for Juan. He has served local students through Children of Valley, participated in Mount Vernon Police Department Preparatory Academy, graduated from Mount Vernon Citizens Academy, donating his musical talents to several community events across Western Washington, served with judicial branch of government during his tenure with Skagit County Superior Court, and is a former council member at the Mount Vernon City Council. Last but not least, we also have Marayln, who is a former Washington State Senator who served in the Washington State Senate from 2011 to 2019. She represented the 32nd Legislative District, and Chase is a Democrat and has been known for her advocacy on various issues, including education, healthcare, and environmental sustainability. Prior to her time in the Senate, she served in Washington State House of Representatives, and Chase has been actively involved in the community service and has a background in education and business. So thank you all of you for being here with us today. We will be having a few questions that we will be asking you. While we get you guys all on the screen. Laura mentioned, Dr. Caillou mentioned, Edie and Juan are exemplary servant leaders in our community. We're pinning everybody to the screen so you guys can all get our panel in front of you in a virtual manner. Right. Few more moments. Right.
I don't see Edie's, Marisol.
Yes, I think Eduardo is
Oh,
looking for her and going to pin
No
her.
worries. Edie, if you're here, can you turn on your video so I can add you, please?
Bueno. While that of course occurs, we can get started with the questions. So the order we can go in will be former Senator Chase, then former Councilmember Morales, and then when she joins us. So the first question we would like to have you guys answer would be, can you briefly describe several jobs you have held or roles you've played prior to your current level leadership? What skills have been the most valuable in the achievement of your careers? Also put that in the
look
chat.
here, you're being recorded.
So Senator Chase, if you would like to go former.
think she just asked you to start. I think she asked you to start, Mom.
Did you want me to go first?
Yes, please.
Oh,
please.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're fine. Yeah.
I apologize. I was, why isn't anybody talking? I'm
No.
Marilyn Chase. I did serve almost 20 years in the state legislature. But my story is different, and I want to tell you about my story briefly, trying anyway. I grew up in a rural community in Yakima. And I know that one of the students said she is from Yakima, and I'm very pleased to see that. My community was a farming community. And I remember my grade school days. It was a school with 1 to 8 grades in the school, and then we would go on to high school from 9 to 12. But in the 7th grade, I decided that I wanted to run for the student body president in the 8th grade. Big deal, right? And that I realized that I was 10 years old and I already had an interest in leadership. We didn't know how to call it. We didn't call it that at the time. It was just really interesting. But I decided, oh, I'm going to run for president. I should. And being a farm girl, we had a different upbringing. I mean, you had to work just like everybody else. And I was told by my teachers. Now, bear in mind, I was 10 years old. I was told by my teachers that I could not run for office because I was a girl. It had to be a boy. And I thought, well, I'll be darned. I was really quite surprised because with my background, you did everything. There was no distinction. So over the years, I participated in community groups. And I cannot begin to tell you how important it is for young people's development to be in community groups. I was in 4-H. I was in some other girl groups, but each of those groups had an elected officer. So we begin to understand. Oh, okay, somebody has to be the leader. And of every group, and somebody kind of puts the meetings together and does the leadership thing. We wouldn't have called it leadership at the time, but we were developing leadership at a young age. So I know that I probably, and I don't know why or how I had been developing leadership before the age of 10. But my mother had been a precinct committee officer over there, and I would see her go down to the Grange. We had Grange halls, and all the people would come and they would vote. And so I knew voting was a big deal, and it was interesting to see that we were taught at an early age that we should participate in our communities, and I think that it gave us a knowledge, and I over the next many years, I began to learn about knowledge, and if I can convince anybody of anything today, I want everyone to understand that the knowledge that you learn in your communities will stay with you all your lives, and that it is as important as the knowledge that you will gain by going on and do formal studying at the universities. Now, I had 13 years at the University of Washington because when I was at the University of Washington, you could go to school and it was set up so that if you were in school, you didn't get drafted to Vietnam. So it meant that girls could also go to school a long time too, and so I did. And I learned a different kind of knowledge. It was knowledge from stories of others about around the world, and I loved history. I learned as much as I could about history because I just thought it was interesting the way that communities organize themselves the same and different around the world. And I studied, but held in my heart the knowledge that I learned in my community. And today we're calling it lived experience. And people say, oh, I've got lived experience. You could write a resume, because during my working years, I was told you have to have a resume, and the only thing that really counted are the things that you did in school and in formal education and that kind of, or formal corporate work and that kind of thing. But I've learned that the community, the knowledge that I gained from my community was every bit as important as the knowledge I gained out of the books. Because when you evaluate as an elected official, you evaluate what a particular set of rules and assumptions will be. What kind of impact is that going to have on a community? If you don't have people at the table with bringing the knowledge that they know about their community, they will be cut out. And that is why what you are doing is so important. You have community knowledge, and now you're getting the knowledge of how the rules are made by others, and how concepts are crafted, and how what people think, and how they formulate the rules that guide our lives. And if you're not at the table, I tell people this all the time, if you're not at the table bringing the knowledge that you have in your heart, in your life, and insist that it get equal respect, you know, in the decision making, then you're probably going to be on the menu. You know, and people begin to understand either you're at the table or you're at the menu. So that's the kind of information I think that is really, really important that you're learning here at LETI, and why I am so pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Marayln. Juan?
Yes, good morning. Can everybody hear me fine?
Yeah.
I see a couple head nods. Excellent. Thank you all, and good morning. It's a wonderful Saturday morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I always come. I always enjoy coming to these sessions because I learn a lot more from all of you than I would assume that most of you learn from me. So it's always a pleasure. And we're only 20 days into the year, so I think it's still appropriate to say Happy New Year. Much health and prosperity to all of you. I'll stop saying it once we get to February. Good morning. The types of jobs that I had before getting into a position of elected office has been, I guess, a little bit all over the place. Out of high school, coming out of high school, I worked as a tutor, Children of the Valley, nonprofit organization in Mount Vernon. Worked in farm food processing with Sakuma for a brief time in the summer at a lumber mill where I blew out my back. To this day, it's still not fine, but we manage. From security and emergency management with Skagit Valley College to the judicial branch of government at Skagit County Superior Court as I got into my early 20s. So I've been a little bit all over the place, from hard, laborious physical work to, you know, education with tutoring, to security work, to, you know, public service with the judicial branch, and then eventually got into the legislative branch, serving as a council member for about 3 years. Kind of sums up my whole background of the places that I've been, the places where I've worked. 28-year-old. So, I mean, I haven't had too much lived experience on this earth, but for the short amount of time that I've been here, it's been great challenges, and I've been learning a lot through all of this, through all this journey that we call life.
Thank you, Juan. Edie? Edie, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
Is my turn? Okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you. For those, I can see, good morning, everyone. I have seen many faces here, and I'm so glad to see many of our community members are being part of this panel. It's really amazing to see new faces and be part of this development and as a community group. For those that don't know me, my name is Carias, and I have been living in Mount Vernon for, it's going to be 30 years this June in 2000, 24. I an immigrant from Honduras. I came here in 1994, and this is the only place I have ever lived in the United States. I've been part of the community for many years, starting as a volunteer, working for CIMAR, for the police department, the SHS, Skagit Valley Hospital. That's how I started to get involved in the community. And other organizations like food banks, eventually on the weekends, or the Catholic Church also trying to help to deliver some for families items like clothes, food, and that's the way how I started to be getting to know the community. It's a very long journey. It's not easy also for us to be part of this this way how to walk when you are not part of the culture. When you immigrate, you left behind so many part of you, your family, your culture, your country, your friends, your language. That is a big barrier we have when we immigrate to live in another country. I just remember when I got here, I just started from zero. Literally, I didn't even know how to put a stamp in an envelope to mail. Many times when I was putting my letters, sent it to Honduras to my family, the letters came back, and I did not understand why. And I asked my friend, and I said, why I don't get it? Why I didn't get the letters back? And she said, did you put some stamps? And I said, yes, I did. But in my country, you can put the stamps anywhere in the envelope, anywhere. Put it on the back of the envelope, and they go. There is no problem. But here, and my friend told me, welcome to the machines country. Everything here is a machine. You have to put the stamp on the corner of the envelope because it has to be read by the machine. If they read it, the envelope doesn't have a post stamp, they're going to send it back. Just imagine. And I had a college degree when I came to United States. And I had to learn everything, starting from there. I had to learn how to use the yellow book. In those days, we did not have internet on the phones. Everything was to be in the telephone guide, and it had to be in the yellow pages to find business phone numbers, things like that. And then that's why, you know, I got so interested to get to know the community and get to know how to help others, because I found very kind people help me how to start. Then now when I see a family working on the fields, I never work in the fields here. I work in the agriculture in my country, but not here. But most of the families I work with, they work on the agriculture. And I try to not to forget where I'm coming from, and not to forget how was my experience in this place where we live now. Get to looking for help or ask, and how I can do this, how can I do that. Starting to go to Skagit Valley College, walking just to get some ESL classes on those days. It was a little easier to get into the college because we're not many students in those days. Now we have many. And that's how I started. And right now I am a elected official, you know, but in a city council in Vernon. I had the opportunity being working with Juan Morales. Both of us, we represent Ward 1 because we live in the same neighborhood. And it was so amazing to get to know a young man, so smart and ready to do changes in the community, having the heart to serve the community, very studious. And I never felt embarrassed to come to Juan and say, Juan, can you explain me this? Juan, can you explain me that? Because my experience, it was not in politics or reading documents, things like that. It was hard for me. Even now, it's hard to understand. And Juan was a very good resource for me to use. Been working together, we did a great team. And even now, I can say the young generation, this is the moment you can get organized and help your community, help your culture, help others' families, being inspiration for those ones, world changers, los que cambian el mundo. Yo diría eso, son los jóvenes. Sometimes I feel a little bit worry just to put the heavy on their shoulders, but we don't have another option. Young generation, they are in charge for the new changes. They bring up the new ideas, the new concepts, and the values, the moral, the character to get good changes in the world where we live in. I am so glad for you invite me to come and say a little bit about our story here and how we got involved and how we can do. I know the changes cannot be done so fast, little by little, it can be done. And we just need to start. We just need to open the gate for the others come behind us and do the work we didn't finish. And for me now, I just want to say thank you for inviting me and tell these young faces I see here, don't get tired and keep organized, keep working, and you are the ones who are going to do more changes that we haven't done so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Edie. Yes, so the next question that we have in the same order and responses will be, please tell us why you ran for office and the challenges you faced in getting elected as either a council member or a legislator. So Marayln, you'll start us off again.
Great, thank you. Yes, I enjoyed the remarks of my colleagues. I truly did. Why I ran for office. I've often had, because of my background, I do a great deal of work on economic inequality and the distribution of wealth in our state. I saw people who worked extremely hard and who were denigrated beyond belief, and I did not like that. I had a finely grown a sense of ethics ground into me. You know, when you live in a rural community, everybody helps each other, generally, and so I felt like in many ways, once I got out of my rural community and I began to look around in the world, I thought, you know, there needs to be different ways of doing things. And when I spent so many years studying this economic inequality and economic opportunity, that finally there came a time when there was an opening. You know, and I worked. I'm a Democrat, so I worked in the Democratic Party locally in my community here in the area, and there was an opening. One of the ways, and I decided, wait a minute, this is an appointed position. Why shouldn't I stand for the appointment? Well, I stood for the appointment, and essentially it was class warfare right on the spot. You know, between two different candidates. Do you want someone like me, who's clearly on a let's say the left, and going against someone who's clearly on the right, and you were given clear choices between which direction, which pathway that the district wanted to have. And I got up and told them exactly what I felt, because I thought, you know, you must be honest about what you're doing. And so what I did is I got a list of everybody who could vote, and in the district organization, and I called every single one of them twice, with some time in between, and told them why I wanted to run. And I wanted to run because I wanted to address these issues of economic inequality and justice and fairness. And I was overwhelming support in the district. And when the vote came, I got the votes, and the other people on the other side were shocked. But this is, in my opinion, one of the best ways for people who hold an alternative analysis of our society and of our economy, how to get into office. You become active in a Democratic, well, Republicans won't usually listen to you, but you get to know the people who have who will vote, the precinct committee officers, and you for sure that when you address issues that you are always consistent, and then when the opportunity occurs, then you go for an appointment. Most of the women and most of the people of color in the legislature got in there by appointment. And so I think it's really important for everybody to understand it's not just running for election. It's the getting the gate open is usually by appointment. And not a lot of people know that, but I think everybody ought to know that. That's how you do it. So that was one of the challenges I faced, and I would be happy to talk to anybody who would even think of running, because I just think it's the greatest thing in the world for people to do, and you are, each and every one of you, being prepared for that. So thank you.
Yeah, on that same question on the why did I run for office? Well, there was a few reasons, but the two main reasons that sort of encompassed everything else really kind of goes back to several years back, back to 2016. We're talking the 2016 presidential election and then onward. So from 2016 onward, I just did not like how things were going, the direction that we were going. This major sense of fear in the atmosphere for rural communities, for communities of color, for people in different economic backgrounds, and it was just this fear of that the country's going to go in a not good direction with the president that was elected at that point in time after the 2016 election. And like I said, it was a moment and an atmosphere of fear I didn't feel comfortable with. And we were in 4 years of that, and I was at a point where I finally woke up of saying, rather than living in fear and being on the sidelines, I'm going to go ahead and get involved. I'm not going to live in fear. I'm going to participate. I'm going to try to make a difference. I'm not saying I'm going to make a difference at the federal level, but I'm going to start where you do start initially, and start at your community. And so I started from there. In late 2020, there was a vacancy from at the Mount Vernon City Council due to some health issues of the previous council member that was there. And so I applied to that vacancy. It was an appointment of, I believe, 8 different individuals, or 8 different candidates. And so I was one of those 8. Out of the 8, we went through an appointment process. I was unanimously appointed to fill that vacancy. And then soon after, later that year, in 2021, I ran through an election, won with 70% of the vote. It sounds like an overwhelming win, but let's talk about the challenges now. There were several challenges. One of them being my young age. At the time, I would have been about 25. And so that was a major challenge for me, because when you look at government functions, different branches of government, whether you're looking at the legislative, at the judicial, at the executive, you usually see a pretty specific profile of individuals, you know, I would say 40 or 50 and above, which is perfectly fine because lived experience is great. But we're talking about 40 and 50 and above, usually male, right? Usually white. And so I didn't meet any of those markers. I'm a person of color, I hit the male marker, I guess, but you know, and I was very, very young. And so those were things that were in my view that were a challenge, because a lot of folks tend to associate, you know, youth, or, you know, and I'm not saying these are my words or that I believe, but I've seen from folks, they tend to associate young and dumb, right? That, oh, they're young, they're inexperienced, but that's not true. It's not true. I've known very young people, you know, much wiser and mature beyond their years. And the opposite is also true. I've seen folks much older than I am, but, you know, I'll leave it at that, you know. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, so I mean, well, for me personally, that was a challenge. The youth piece, it affected me, and then both a challenge and a strength. I would say my bicultural background. My parents are originally from Mexico. I was born in Washington State, but I picked up both languages just fine. I grew up in a Spanish-speaking household, and then I ended up learning English when I got into elementary, and I struggled. You know, I was behind in my reading proficiency and writing, because I was, you know, not just learning my 1, 2, 3s or ABCs, but picking up a new language at the same time. So it was a difficult for me in that sense. And that same difficulty kind of transpired during an election process and being into office, because, you know, when I was out there door knocking and doorbelling, I would have interactions of saying, well, basically race comes up, in other words, just to summarize it. Race would come up, and you know, it was perceived as a weakness or as a challenge, but really it was a strength for me, because I was able to close the gap between both cultures, serve everybody equally, empathetically, with respect and professionalism, not picking one group of folks more over the other, but serving everybody across the board. But yeah, I would say those were the challenges that that I faced. I'll pass it on.
Thank you. Edie?
Yes. The question is how or what was moved me to run for a position, for elected position.
And what challenges you specifically faced?
And the challenges. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 questions in one, right? Okay. The first one, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't know what I was going to go through. I didn't know exactly what an election was. I didn't know for me to be a city council, I had to run a campaign. Never at all. Never. I never did. I had to learn, like I said, I had to learn from zero, from the beginning, how it is to be enrolled in a role like that, running a campaign, getting to know what exactly is a city council. Starting for there, I didn't know exactly the role for a city council was. What it motivated me, it was after the Donald Trump election is when it started. Is when the political movement with a lot of women got involved. It was because of Bernie Sanders and because of Donald Trump. What Bernie Sanders was inspired women doing changes. And when we saw Donald Trump came in, and get all of us being miserable as a citizens, as a women, as a Hispanic, as an immigrant. I always was, like I said, community member involved in everything. And it was never in my head being part of these events, running a campaign or be somebody being as a city council, but being elected. Uh, I was not part of my plan, but somebody saw on me those kind of things. They said, "Oh, you are the person who has to come and come and do the changes in the community." And my daughter also. I remember one time I was wearing a little safety pin. I don't know how many of you know about the campaign. It started when after Donald Trump, you were wearing a safety pin in your clothes, and it means we were looking for changes. When my daughter saw me, I was wearing the little safety pin in my blouse. She asked me what it was about, and I said, "I know." "And do you?" And she said, "Yes, I know." And I told her, and I said, "We are part of the change." And she said, "But the changes, mother, don't do it when you are home. Anybody can wear the safety pin and anybody can say, I'm part of the change. But if you don't leave your comfort zone, you're doing nothing." That's what she told me. And I started to go for community meetings and I started to hear what is what's going on in the community and what we needed. And Jeremy Harrison, he saw me. He said he was part of these changes. And I'm gonna tell Rosario next time she can invite Jeremy Harrison, because even he's a white male, he's a big change in this community because he has eye for every single citizen get involved in politics. And I'm gonna say I am product of that Jeremy Harrison work. And that's how it started. And we ran for my first election. We ran 2 campaigns, primary and general. And the primary election, we were three candidates, 2 whites, and I was the first. I don't want to say I was the first Latino running for a campaign, because before me, it was somebody else. Before it was Pedro Perez. Pedro Perez is the first Latino who ran for a campaign here in Mount Vernon. But I was, after many years later, I was little sad. I didn't know how to support local and Latino candidates to win a campaign. Then I think he did it by himself, and I think that's why he didn't pass. When it came for time for me to run, we saw those challenges. And the challenges for us is we didn't have here in Mount Vernon enough Latino voters. People didn't vote. Many people, they were able to vote, and many people didn't. And if it's something I want to say, we are proud. What the job we did in the first campaign, it was that. Open the gate, knocking doors. With every single day we did doorbelling and talking to people. And we were the first campaign ever here in Mount Vernon who were waking up the people. They were able to vote, get to vote. And that is a very tremendous work to do. And also registering the new voters. As soon as they know we knew they were 18 and able to vote, get them to register and get them to educate people how to vote, how important it is to get to vote. If you have a vote, you have a voice. Don't let your voice be in silence. Just go out and do the changes. Then we, in the beginning, in the primary election, I didn't pass because we had incumbent official was running. And people were saying, probably I'm not going to pass, maybe next time. But we had so many Latino votes. They came later. In the first campaign, we won for 57 votes difference. It was a very little difference. But what I'm gonna say, I'm gonna close this just saying now in Mount Vernon, elected officials, they have the eye on us. I never saw before any senators or somebody running for Congress, even the governor. He came here when he was in election time. He came here asking for Latino vote. Then I want to say we are so proud to be working hard, and we did a difference, asking and educating people how important it is to get out and vote. Thank you. I hope I answered the 2 questions in one.
Yes, thank you, Edie. And then I'm going to be combining these last 2 questions together. Is taking into account the current state of our social political environment, what, in your opinion, is a critical issue for Latinos and people of color? And what is your message or your call to action for our future leaders? Oh, Marayln, you're on mute still.
Thank you. I had to keep so you didn't have to listen to my dogs.
Oh, no worries. I do that all the time.
I think the most important thing is what I was just saying. People need to register. You can't bring about change by sitting at home, and people need to register and they need to vote. But I also think they need to have in their community exchanges and gatherings. I think that you need to also bring all of those newly registered voters into the local political organizations, and get them accustomed to talking about these issues. Now, one of the things I do want to say, one of the questions that we're going to just briefly, what is the one of the biggest challenges I had as a woman in the legislature is white males who are in the majority, at least when I was there, and they still are. And there is a culture that can only be overtaken by also taking over the majority, because it's very hard if you have a different point of view about a public policy and about how things ought to be governed. There is a tendency, if people don't agree with you, for that to be ignored or ridiculed or disrespected. And it is very difficult to bring about change, and whether it's change to expand the universe of people who are benefiting from, say, a public policy, or people who are excluded. And let me give you just a real quick example. We had when I was in the legislature, we had a bill to change the GED requirements so people could get a high school diploma. And the people who there were some people in the education department who decided they were going to redo the test and the test questions, making it like you had to have a college degree in chemistry and physics and issues that you wouldn't even study in high school, that you would be tested on if you wanted to get a GED. So we had a big fight about that. And yes, we had 100% support from the Republicans. We had a great deal of reluctance on the part of the Democratic white male majority. So I mean, I think we need to make sure that when we become active politically, that we recognize the different levels of political influence, and that we become active at the local level in politics, you know, and then move forward and move on up the ladder of electoral politics that way, because it can be so much easier if you have people around you who are supporting you and who want to see you in office.
Thank
And
you.
I would love to talk to people about what they could do, to learn the way how it is. I mean, I'm so impressed, Iris, that you had this campaign without even knowing how to do it. That was just great. That's great. We could make it easier on you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Edie.
to add to the conversation, yeah, just really, I think the critical issue for Latinos, people of color, and all people really is to my message is the same, to participate, to get involved. We're not talking about that. Hey, you got to be shooting for to get to the federal level, or anything like that. You have to start at the local level, because that's really where the true meaningful impacts are made. I mean, if you're talking about having an immediate impact, you start at your community, and that's really where it's at. So it's about being involved, participating, and not only that, but also having good leadership and a strong ethical acumen. Because participating is only one piece. The second piece to that is the good leadership, having good servant leadership and good ethics of giving recognition when it's due, being a servant leader in the sense of not being of the boss mentality of saying that's where we need to go and I need everybody to go in that direction. It's actually quite the opposite of saying this is where we are, this is where we need to be, and we're all going to go and move together in that direction. That's good servant leadership and of being of service to others. And then the ethics part is also vitally important too, in the sense that when you see an injustice, when you see that something's wrong, when someone's been done wrong, it's important to speak up, even if no one else does. And that's easier said than done, because when you're in a room that you notice something and no one else is saying anything, humans we follow social norms and we tend to go with the crowd. That's psychology. Wherever the herd is going, that's where we tend to move to. And it takes a great amount of courage to separate yourself, to stand alone, even if you have to. And so that's vitally important too. So I would say it's about being involved, participating, having good servant leadership, and good ethics at play. You have that, I mean, you got a pretty good recipe for making good, meaningful changes, regardless of what you do. Could be in medicine, could be in law enforcement, could be in politics, could be in the trades. You name it. You have that, you'll go a long ways.
Thank you. Edis?
Yes. To start, I'm gonna say, before I came to United States, I never knew I was a woman of color. That is I think it's a few years new term, how they label us as a Latinos or as other immigrants. They are not Caucasian or white. I never knew I was a woman of colors, starting for that, because in my country, we never say somebody's a color. All of us, we have different colors. Even, I think even the white people, why they are not going to be people of color? They are people of color too, they're white. Just because I'm brown, or just because somebody from Asia is a little lighter, or people from India, all of us, we are people of color. But they say us, a woman of color. When I was starting to run, they said, oh, you're a woman of color, and you're a woman, and you're a minority, you're Latino. You have a lot of chances to win. It's not true. It's not true. what I'm gonna say is when we have the passion to do what you want to do, it doesn't matter what field it is. For me, my passion was continue working in the community with vulnerable families, people they don't have a voice, people they was even mistreated when even when they go for a medical appointment, being seen different in the hospital, or even a mother who goes to the pediatrician with the baby, and the mother leaves from the office. When I asked them how the doctor said, mom said, nothing. I don't know. How is possible somebody can go to see a doctor having a sick baby and they don't know what exactly the baby has or what is going on? How is possible we are not able to have all these basic needs in our community, in our society, in our families? Those families, people don't know how hard it is for them to come from so far, looking for a better life, looking for a better education for their children, and just come here and not to have the basic rights as a medical, as education, and as a treatment. All the kind of things is what I saw when I came into this business. But I want to say also, for somebody gets into politics and run a campaign and want to be, it's very important to get around the people they are embracing and in the same campaign and in the same issues and in the same topics or dreams. Because when you are into this and you get around people, it has to be working for the same project. In this case, for us, when we were running, we wanted to be a servers, public servers, serve the community, serve the city. There is many misunderstanding when you become as a city council. For example, I didn't know the police department was part of the city. And many of us before get to know what the kind of police department we have misconception about those citizens. But when you're there, you have to work around them. And is when you understand they are another citizen, exactly I am, exactly a student, or exactly is a child or anybody. But it's all work, get to know them, work around them, change minds, and bring good service where in the place or in the city you live in. Like here in Vernon, I want to say I don't have the same concept for the police department that I had before. Now it's different. Why? Because we work around them and we see them, how they work around in the community. Then it's very important when you run for a position, any position, you have to do your own research and convince yourself that is something you want to do. And be honest with yourself, be honest with the people they get to know you, and be kind, and being also humble. Humble, when I say humble, is when you are accepting, you are coming to learn a new perspective. You're coming to learn from others, and you're coming just to negotiate with others, because it's not easy to come in an elected position thinking you have the power to do everything you saw. No, you have to come and negotiate with others. And we understand we don't have the completely power to do those changes we wanted to do. It's coming to work in a team. It's coming to come and do your best ability, your best character, your honesty, and be yourself. Not pretend to be someone else. Be yourself. Don't lose your roots. Don't lose your culture, and don't lose your beliefs, because that's the character is going to end it in yourself. Everything here is transitory. Everything, wherever place we go to serve as an employee, as a public elected, as a volunteer, we just need to do our best, give our best what we have on us, and at the end of the day, you're going to be the person you are or you always were, and that's the message I can give to the future elected. And I am here. Anybody wants to talk about my experience, I will be so glad to give my own tips. Thank you.